Good evening and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Avi Grossman. This is Parsha Talk. Today we have a special guest, Rabbi Chananya Weissman of EndTheMadness.org originally, and a columnist almost regular for the Jewish press. I have to check how regular it is. An author and someone who actually has quite a lot to say on recent issues. Don't forget, for those of you viewing at home, you could send in your questions and comments on the chat in Facebook, and hopefully we'll try to address them. So there's been a lot of, let's just say, political developments almost, where we're straddling the line between politics and halacha. Sometimes halachic opinions are expressed that perhaps we could say that they have a little bit too much of a political influence. They're a little bit too convenient, and perhaps also they're quite Nogea, as they say. They're quite relevant to this week's parsha. It's Parashat B'reishit. We're still in Corona lockdown, for those who want to date this particular video. We're not in masks. We're both at home. Well, technically, I'm in the base medrash, but it's like my home. So we're alone. So we're not breaking any rules. And I'd like to ask Rabbi Weissman right now, what's on your mind, and why is it important that we get the new message out?
Well, there's many things on my mind, but specifically, I think what we most want to talk about tonight is this certain rabbi, you can name him if you wish, published something, and it was covered in the Times of Israel, which always jumps at an opportunity to cover these things, indicating, and he measured his words very carefully to say that he wasn't trying to change the law or possibly anything like that, but he was basically saying that as far as he's concerned from a Torah standpoint, he sees nothing wrong with two men living together in a romantic sort of relationship and raise children together, because based on the pasuk, it's not good for man to be alone. No halachic analysis or sources, but just sort of splicing a pasuk that was convenient and ignoring everything else. Because it's not good for man to be alone, we can basically do anything. God forbid people should suffer by being alone to that extent. And of course, that is completely not correct. It's not a Torah standpoint. I don't think we need to debate and argue why this is not so. It's simply outside the pale. But the problem is twofold. One is that because he has a rabbi attached to his name and he is somewhat of a known figure, it lends a certain measure of credence and validation to that standpoint. And secondly, from the silence of, unfortunately, of many people in the Orthodox community who don't want to touch the subject because of fear of backlash, it also leaves a big vacuum, which is going to be filled by falsehood if we don't fill it with truth.
I'd like to also point out the pasuk they like to quote, "Lo tov heyoth ha'adam levado." It's not good for man to be alone. That's a God's statement right before he decides to do what? Es elo ezer kenegdo. I'll make him a helpmate opposite him, and that's basically an argument for someone discovering a wife. That is, if you're a man, you should get yourself an ezer kenegdo who's of the female persuasion.
Well, of course, look, as our sages teach us, everywhere the apikarsim have made something hefker, the answer is right near wherever they see as a springboard to their apikarsis. The answer is always nearby, and this is just another example of that.
I also find it amazing that here where I live, these types of issues don't come up at all. And I can imagine in most Haredi places, this is not a topic. They're not looking for ways to somehow appeal to people of these, I can't say preference, by the way. It turns out that's forbidden. Maybe you saw the news out of the States. What was right. A politically correct term, and they demanded that they talk about people's preferences in these matters, is suddenly bigoted. You're not allowed to say that. That's offensive. You have to say something else, because if you say it's preference, you're denying the fact that that's just how they're born. It's crazy. And they even, I think you saw this on Facebook. I have a link to it on the screen right now, that the Merriam-Webster dictionary yesterday updated itself. Well, they updated their own dictionary to reflect the fact that this is now a bigoted word. The term that they forced on society is now not good enough. They're rewriting the dictionary as we speak. I think also over Shabbos, I was hearing some political pundits say that they're rewriting political terms. It's crazy. But you would only consider these ideas if, let's say, you are watching, I guess, a lot of American television and other mainstream media, and you're of the belief that these things have to be normalized and recognized. I think it's just shocking. And we're also called upon, I think you called upon, as many rabbinic figures, to say that they vehemently disagree with the views the I guess the halachic consequences expressed in this article that was put out. And yes, so I'm expressing my own vehement disagreement. I think I also think it's a travesty. I think that we should speak out. I think that saying that perhaps we could accept the fact that two men set up an attempt at a Jewish home is beyond the pale. I told you earlier that Rav Tavdi, I think that's how we pronounce his name. I don't know. His name was spelled Tet Bet Dal Yud. Put out a response in Arutz Sheva, which I've seen some people approve of, although they haven't gone public with their approval of him. And he basically gave the argument that two men setting up a home together is like a married woman and another man deciding to set up a home together. And we would not countenance such a thing, or let's say, God forbid, a brother and sister, or any other of the relationships that are expressly prohibited by our Torah. There's just no room for that. We don't. We cannot allow that. And I also saw the underdose. Wait, Rabbi Weissman, are you still with us?
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay. Sorry, I almost lost the connection with you. Everybody's using Zoom and internet around here, and we're liable to suddenly just lose things. It happens all the time with the kids, especially during school days. There was, I think, Underdose made this point very well satirically. Just a few months ago, they had Underdose. By the way, for those of you who only speak English, Underdose is an Israeli comedy troupe for ostensibly religious guys, although I can imagine most mashgichim in the yeshivas would consider these guys too much of, they're making too much leitzanos on important matters, Torah matters, and how Jews, good Jews, keep the Torah. But either way, they're a comedy troupe, and they put out YouTube videos. We've even seen them live in some performances. They also make spoof songs. And they had an interview with a couple, a nice, good Jewish couple, might as well be in Renana or some other place. And they completely show Torah mitzvahs, except that they are cannibals. And they demand that everybody accept them. Some neighbors ostracize them. Other people consider them less than Jews because they happen to do this one avera. And they're begging for acceptance, even though they don't intend to relinquish the sins that they have. And they even compare it to speaking Lashon Hara, just like you and I, unfortunately, sometimes speak Lashon Hara. What are we going to do? So too, every now and then they happen to, just eat a person or two. So what are they going to do? What do you think needs to be done in the future about this issue?
In terms of what exactly? First of all, I mean, the first thing is people simply need to speak the truth. You don't need scholarly tshuva to disprove their arguments. They're not really analyzing the Torah, coming with a question. I don't understand. The Torah seems to be saying this, seems to be indicating that. Can we understand the Torah better? They've made up their minds that this is what they're going to do, but they want to justify it. And one of the things I've told them is, if you want to live together in, a man and a man marrying each other, that's against the Torah. Don't call it Orthodox Judaism. I can't stop you from doing it. We don't have a Sanhedrin to punish you. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. You're living in a society where people can pretty much do what they want and get away with it, but don't call yourself Orthodox Jews. Don't say, I'm an Orthodox Jew, that is LGBT, whatever other letters they may have added since the time we started the conversation. You can't have both. Everybody does averos, okay? But the difference is that they identify as sinners. They say this is part of their identity. They are obsessed with this lifestyle, this culture, a community, as they call it. And there's no such thing as an Orthodox Jew saying, I do an avera, and this is part of who I am. God made me this way. I have the gene for this avera. I can't change. It's God's fault, but I'm Orthodox anyway. There's no such concept in Judaism. God gives people a nature, but we have the possibility of change. We have a chiyuv to change. That our life responsibility is to work on ourselves constantly and change. But the minute somebody says, it's all over, this is the way I am, I can't change, I won't change, and you must accept me anymore, we have an obligation not to try to embrace this person and bring this person into the community, but to boot this person out of the community to protect them from having an influence on others and drawing them in. It's not our job to take a gay person and say, we accept you and we love you and you do things we don't approve of, but we still want you as part of the community. If somebody says, I'm struggling with this avera and I need help in abandoning the avera, we have to reach out to them and love them and embrace them and help them in every way possible. But the moment somebody says, I'm not going to change, I can't change, this is who I am and you must accept me, we have an obligation not to accept that person because that person is already thrown in the towel.
Now, the author, I'd just like to point out, has a brother, a very prominent brother in New York, who I believe is affiliated either with the Reform movement or perhaps with the Conservative movement. I'd be surprised if it was the Conservative movement. And he is an open, proud, and unapologetic homosexual. So I think that perhaps the author has perhaps what would it be? An interest in trying to be the right hand that is Makariv, the right hand that brings people back. We push away with the left hand, but we also try to bring back with the right hand. I could say that almost as a limud schus, but then again, so he should keep that to himself and try to bring his brother back, but he shouldn't put out things like this publicly that could be misunderstood. Also,
I'm not here to. I can't possibly psychoanalyze the intentions that somebody has writing something like this. Maybe he wants to get brownie points with the leftist circles where he feels more comfortable and at home. I don't know, and it doesn't make any difference. People sometimes challenge me. Well, what if your own child had these inclinations, or what if somebody, your parent or your brother, had these inclinations? I would say it doesn't matter. God comes first. The Torah comes first. That's the bottom line. The Torah doesn't change because somebody you care about is violating the Torah. The Torah is eternal, and that's what we're standing for.
The idea of ostracism. Sometimes we push people out of the community. Sometimes we don't want to create martyrs. It's a big problem. We would react to someone, and he would just become much more popular somewhere else. In the internet age, unfortunately, all sorts of deviants can find they could find people of like mind. They could find companions in what they do, and it encourages them almost. You can't find anybody who can't find someone who can join up with him in his whatever it is his crusade happens to be. That's a danger. I don't know how Chazal would deal with this type of thing. It used to be that the ostracism, the cherem, the expulsion from the community, or whatever, something along those lines, that used to be a good tool. But nowadays, it's almost useless.
Well, it's useless because it's been abused by people who don't have the authority to be handling that tool properly. Like any tool, a person has to be trained and he has to be authorized to use that tool. And cherem is simply a tool for dealing with certain issues that affect cities or towns or the Jewish people as a whole. If people who are not qualified or capable of using those tools responsibly use them anyway, then they're only going to cause damage. Just like people calling others names like apikoros, that's become like anybody you don't like is suddenly an apikoros, Korach, Amalek. These words are bandied about so frequently that they've lost all meaning, unfortunately. But nevertheless, if it's nothing more than making a symbolic gesture and saying this is wrong, this is not acceptable, don't put him in cherem. Whether you put him in cherem or don't put him in cherem doesn't really make any difference. But we need to stand up and say this is wrong, this is not Torah, this is not acceptable. Period. That's all we have to do. It's not really complicated.
I don't know anybody who has gone on record necessarily in the rabbinic establishment here approving of what was written, although I can imagine there are some. I can imagine there are some who are also waiting for this or actually saving it and going to use this as evidence. See, even the Orthodox are getting in line and finally coming around to understanding what the masses have begun to understand.
Well, that was a slant. That was a slant of the Times of Israel article, and I think that this rabbi did it in sort of hand in hand with them, because many of his pieces have been featured on their website. And one time I wrote something that in passing was critical of something that he had done without even mentioning it by name, and they censored that back when I was writing for the Times of Israel before they banned me for being too orthodox, basically. Yes. But yes, I mean that's basically the slant. See, here you have what they called a prominent Orthodox rabbi saying it. So he's one of the good ones. How come all the other Orthodox rabbis can't jump on board? It must be that they're the bad ones. Yeah, you have sort of these moles from within the Orthodox world. Once they start sort of, leaching over to the other side uses them as useful idiots to basically shame the rest of the Orthodox world. See, this Orthodox rabbi says it's okay. How come all the other ones don't?
Yeah, that's a really big problem. That's why we have to speak out against it. This week is Parashat B'reishit. So it's important because this parsha talk, we're going to talk a little bit about the parsha. Of course, the pasuk that we were discussing before is right there in the second parak of the Torah. God created man. The first chapter has been pointed out by scholars since the beginning of time, since the Bible became a bestseller. Have pointed out that there's multiple accounts, and even in B'reishit itself, of man's creation. First, in the first chapter, where God apparently creates man as both male and female and blesses them and tells them to basically rule the earth. And then a longer account in the second chapter, where God creates man initially, apparently just a male, and then decides to create a female helpmate for him. That's what we were discussing. And then again in I think it's the fifth chapter, which is the seventh reading, traditionally according to our cycle, where once again it says how God created man and gave him the name man, and he started having it, which is almost the contradiction is encapsulated there, because it says that he was created male and female, and then this man lived for a certain amount of time before he had the son who would carry on his legacy, and he had other children. What do you think? What else? What are you passionate about in this week's parsha? What do you think that someone needs to know about this week's parsha? Just because, what is the most important point that you would?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm qualified to even pick one point and say this is the number one point in the parsha, but in terms of the relevance of what's going on in modern times, B'reishit lays down the very basics of gender issues, gender roles. I've written a sefer about that. One of my books is about the role and nature of men and women, why God chose to create two types or species of human beings, how they are supposed to work together, how they're different, and so on and so forth. And we get a lot of that from this week's parsha. But of course, the very first passage of the parsha, and I actually posted this on Facebook earlier today, was the leftists, the atheists. One of their popular lines is "My body, my choice." They use it specifically that a woman is allowed to kill a baby because it's her body and it's her choice to do so. And if you if you cast any aspersions on that, then you're a hateful, horrible person because you're trying to take away women's rights. And B'reishit teaches us very simply, it's not your body. Her body doesn't belong to her. My body doesn't belong to me. It's God's body. God owns everything in this world, and he entrusts us with a body for as long as we are on this earth, but we're not allowed to do anything that we want to do with this body. And anybody who holds a philosophy of my body, therefore I can do anything I want with it, first of all, it's simply not true, because there's a lot of things that in any society you can't do with your body because it might be harmful to yourself or to other people. So there's no such concept anywhere of my body, therefore stay out of it. But second of all, it's also atheism. You cannot be a Jew and say it's my body, it's not God's body, period. And that's something the very first pasuk in the Torah teaches us. And that is the foundation for everything that follows, because if you don't accept that, nothing else is really relevant.
Mm. Well, you mentioned you learned a lot about gender roles. Aside from what you just described, what other gender roles can one glean or do we understand are supposed to be in this week's parsha?
There's many things. There's a beautiful Kli Yakar that I saw earlier today, and he says, why is God only referred to in male form? Hashem, Ishmael, Chama, and so on, all throughout the Torah, Hashem is only spoken of in terms of maleness. And that's something that you see in the leftist world, where the women want to show that they're trendy, like they'll call God she and her. So, they try to take God for themselves. God's not a man. God could be a woman. Women are just as good as men. And so it's become part of their little culture there. They try to take God and make a woman out of him. But the Kli Yakar actually addresses this, and he says, because the Iker identifying feature of a man is that he's a mashpia. He has an influence, a more assertive, dominant influence on other things, and the woman is the receiver of the shefa. And there's a whole, that branches off into many different areas. But if you want to filter it down to the most basic point, the man is a mashpia and the woman is a mekabel of the shefa. And therefore, since God can only be a mashpia, he doesn't receive anything from anybody. Even when we're davening to Hashem, we're not really offering him anything. Even when we bring a korban to Hashem, right? And the Torah is very clear about this. We're not giving Hashem anything that he needs. Hashem owns everything, and he doesn't need food, and he doesn't need us to offer him anything at all. We're doing it for our benefit, for our sake. Okay? So Hashem is the ultimate mashpia. He only gives. He doesn't actually receive from anybody or anything. Therefore, God, by definition, can only be spoken of as ish. He can't be spoken of as an isha because it doesn't make any sense according to the meaning of the word.
Mm-hmm. So God is a mashpia and never the mushpa.
Exactly.
We'd say he's a hifil and not a hufal.
Exactly.
I always liked the more simplistic answer to the question. God, of course, yes, is always addressed in the masculine throughout. There's been other reasons given by Rishonim also along similar lines. What I like the most, perhaps you'd also think it's a little bit entertaining, ancient Hebrew, like modern Hebrew and other Semitic languages, doesn't have a general neutral case. In English, we're used to saying it, him, and her. Well, actually, and by the way, the usual people also already don't like these pronouns and the usual gender classification.
Well, I have white privilege and Jewish privilege, so
Yeah.
I might as well be a bigot also. Why not?
Yeah. So, but at least let's take classical English until 5 years ago had a him and a her and an it. Really, Hebrew would have a gender neutral term also, but it doesn't. There's no it. God would, if the Torah were given today and we were speaking English, then I think, Rabbi Sachs wrote something along these lines. But Rav Kook also said something like this: if the Torah had been given to the chosen people nowadays, and they happened to speak English, and that was their holy tongue, then God would be an it. But in Hebrew, everything by force has to be either masculine or feminine, and just for the grammar's sake. And it so happens that God's ineffable name, however it is supposed to be pronounced, which is, we're not going to talk about that, and there are people who claim they know how to pronounce it. I don't believe any of them. God's ineffable name happens to be masculine, so God is referred to in the masculine. That's the only reason. It's just a simple grammatical
technical reason. I don't know. I'm not really in love with that idea. I think God could have created it in the Hebrew language as well if he thought that it was more suitable for him. There was nothing stopping him from doing that.
Well, there is something I pointed out to my daughter. I'll now bring up the Rambam, which he does say something that is relevant to this. I was pointing out to my daughter that something the Rambam and others have pointed out, that certain forms of God's name use the royal we. Just like the Queen of England, she says, "We're not amused," and she speaks in the plural. So too, many of the names, especially the important names that we use for God, use what look like plural forms, even though they're singular. For example, Elohim is a plural, and sometimes that could be a secular name. Elohim is the judges also, or sometimes just the people who are in charge. When we refer to God, it's a royal plural. There is a singular Eloah, with a mapik, and the plural is like I said. So that is something that we should take note of, and also Adnut, God's mastery over everything. He's the Adon HaKol, the master of everything. So you would say my master in Hebrew is Adoni, and my masters with the patach would be Adonai. I'm saying with a patach, so I don't say the holy name. And God's name is basically that name. We pronounce it as though it's the plural, my masters, and we change the patach to a kametz because that's also what we do with proper nouns. Proper noun names, like the word would be Nathan, he gave, or hu asaf, and when they're a person's name, the patach becomes a kametz to show that now we're talking at a proper name. So these names, and also Shakai, by the way, those are all plural forms as an honorific. But the Rambam says something very interesting. I was asked a question. We're going to address a viewer's question was sent in earlier. Why is it Unkelus normally translates, or our standard versions of Unkelus have, that when you have the Shem Havaya, the ineffable name, the God's four-letter name is written, is represented as is, or sometimes in shorthand, Yud Yud, or whatever else the printers chose. And the Shem Elokut, which is, we mentioned it before, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, that's also rendered as is. But throughout the creation account, which is the first chapter of Genesis, which we mentioned, it always says that Elohim did it, right? It says Vayomer Elohim and Vayomer Elohim, etc. Onkelos always translates that as God's proper name. He uses the Shem Havaya, Va'amar Hashem, all throughout the account. And I was asked why that is. And I think I didn't see this expressly addressed by Rambam, but I think that it could very well be answered by something he writes in the first section of Mor Nevuchim in the 61st chapter. Unless you want to take a guess at it, try to stab what he try to guess what the Rambam.
I'm actually learning Mor Nevuchim now for the very first time with my father, and we actually did chapter 61 not too long ago, but I don't know where you're going with this.
Okay, so I'm going to say a bracha on this. Because God created everything. You know, he also created water. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol nihya b'dvaro. It goes like this. He says, first of all, he explains what the ineffable name is like. The tetragrammaton is God's actual name. That's a proper noun.
It says that's the Shem HaMeforosh. That is the actual Shem HaMeforosh.
Yeah. Whereas all the other names, including the Shem Elokut and Shakai, etc., are descriptions of him, or as Rav Papach translates, Ta'arim, descriptions. And not only that, sometimes all those words can be used to describe something else. We gave examples when Elohim is secular, and even Shem Adnut sometimes refers to angels, or even if you were referring to your actual masters. If two of my masters would walk in here and it would be at the end of a sentence, I would say even their name, I would call them Adonai with a patach, and because it's the end of a sentence, it would get a kamatz. There's actually a few times where in the Masorah we have that word show up, and there's a note: is it referring to God or is it referring to some other entity? An angel, perhaps, the plural. Yeah. So it says Chol or Kodesh. Is it secular or is it holy? So that's God's actual name. And then he says, he quotes the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. I think, oh man, it's not on my screen anymore because I had to close it because there's so many windows open here. But in the 61st chapter, he points out the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, before creation, there was only one God's name. God only had the proper name. And that basically means that it was only once creation had been created and the culmination that there were people who can comprehend this, that God got the other names. And that's why at the beginning of creation and up until the creation is complete and man is finally created, there's even Elohim translated as Shem, the explicit name, God's actual name, because all the other names wouldn't count there. Onkelos is not a literal translator. Onkelos is also a parshan. Sometimes he departs from literal translation. If it was just a word for a translation, we wouldn't need him. He has to, like Rambam points out, he has to remove false ideas from people. He has to give people the right impression. He has to give people the proper grasp of how the sages traditionally understood what the pasuk means, and also how the halach understood it. So Onkelos, I think, thank God, someone had a series. I was writing about this. Drazen wrote about this some years ago. There was a series on Gil Students' blog by Rabbi Rothstein, where he would go through all the non-literal translations Onkelos has in every parsha. He just completed the series this year. And you could find it there. It has a really good insight why Onkelos would deviate from Shop. But then again, if you want to know much about Onkelos, just read the beginning of that first section, more Nevuchim, and you'll have a host of information just to understand at least how the Rambam understood Onkelos. What else could we get out of the parsha before we have to sign off?
Well, we wanted to talk a little bit about the shidduch world also, as I recall, right?
Okay, please.
So this is not so strongly connected to the parsha, though, of course, you do have the first shidduch in history with Adam and Chava, so you can use that as a springboard for it. But one of my main passions, and what I guess I'm most known for in my earlier days of writing for the Jewish press and other Jewish media, was trying to bring sanity and true Torah values back to the shidduch world. That's what EndTheMadness was all about, and I'm still writing about it today. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I said, oh, that's you. Okay.
That's me. I'm the EndTheMadness guy, right? So before I got into the family values issues and even Aliyah issues, I was writing about the shidduch world. And unfortunately, there's a major problem today in the Orthodox world. It's been this way for probably about 20 or 30 years, I think more so. I can tell you I'm number 5 out of 7 children in my family. And I can tell you my older siblings all got married by meeting people naturally. Married a girlfriend from high school, B'nai Akiva and CSY, meeting through friends, that sort of thing, just naturally meeting through the course of your daily life. And the younger ones, and my nieces and nephews that have gotten married, have all been through blind dates, fix-ups, shadchanim, and so on. So I think I grew up during the period when there was really a shift happening in the Orthodox world, and that's why I was very keenly attuned to it. I started writing about this in my early 20s because I saw this shift that was happening in dating practices and attitudes and what singles were being told, and it really disturbed me because I thought it was counterproductive and really against our values in many ways. So I've been writing about this ever since, trying to bring back more of the values of the way it used to be.
Do you think you've had results? Do you think people are listening?
Well, of course. I mean, I've had a lot of results, but I mean, look, the Jewish world is very large. A lot of people are not going to listen to me because I don't look the way they would expect somebody to look for them to listen to. I'm not part of their little segment of society. I don't have their Das Torah, or I'm not saying what they want to hear, which is often the case. But people are listening. There's a lot of people who do think the same way, who are attuned to the same problems, but they're also afraid of speaking out. Unfortunately, there's a big culture of fear in the Orthodox world, especially as it pertains to the shidduch world. People are afraid that anything they say or do that is not exactly in line with social norms, I'm not talking about Torah norms, but social expectations, can harm their shidduch chances or the chances of their children. So they're afraid to speak out or do something differently, even though they know that it's wrong. They go along with the system. I mean, how often do we see people writing anonymous letters to the editor, railing about the shidduch world, the shadchanim, how terrible everything is, and they say, please don't sign my name because I still have children to marry off. Well, if you think the system is so terrible, why are you participating in it? Why are you perpetuating it? No one's forcing you. Opt out of it. But there's this fear that there's no other way. It can't be done any other way, which also brings in the concept of emunah. Do you really think a shadchan holds the key to your destiny, or does God make a shidduch? Is it proper hishtadlos to do everything that goes against your grain and goes against Torah values because you think that's the only way to get married? I don't think that's proper hishtadlos. I've written a lot about this as well. The proper balance between hishtadlos and bitachon, especially as it pertains to the shidduch world. Like, what is a person's role and the effort that you have to do, and what do you say, I've done enough and now I leave the rest up to God?
Do you think people should be given, or at least the Jewish youngsters should be given more opportunities to meet naturally? You think that it's been reduced in our communities, that we've been artificially created a situation where people are not being exposed to each other in a natural means?
Oh, for sure. In much of the Orthodox world, it's been totally eliminated, and it's a terrible thing. Now, people challenge me and say, well, what about the Upper West Side? What about Katamon? There, people are meeting all the time naturally, and they're also having problems. And my response to them is, it's really apples and oranges, because in certain so-called singles communities, a lot of them are there not so much to get married, but to feel safe and at home continuing to be single. It's a very easy place for people to go on staying single there indefinitely. And a lot of these people are focusing on their careers, their friends, they're traveling, they're doing a lot of things in their lives, and marriage is kind of taking a back seat. So, but within the segments of Orthodox society, we're getting married as soon as possible, meaning early 20s or even in your late teens, really at the earliest possible age, and having as many children as you can, really old school Torah values. In those segments of the Orthodox world, it's almost impossible to meet naturally, to the extent that if in spite of all the obstacles that these segments of society place and barriers to singles meeting naturally, they somehow, in spite of it, meet somebody on their own. They're expected to find the shadchan after the fact to fix them up and sort of act as the intermediary and kosher up the fact that they met on their own. That's the extent that it is. And that's very, very harmful. Now, I don't think that we should eliminate any kosher way of meeting. There is a room for matchmaking. There's room for online dating. There's room for singles events. There's room for people to meet naturally. All of these need to be on the table. And all of them need to be improved. The natural meeting, the opportunities that singles have to meet without a shadchan, namely today the singles events, are very poorly run. They're full of pressure and awkwardness, and they don't make it easy for people to meet. There need to be more natural meeting opportunities, like in the old school, where people could just meet through the shul, through mixed eating at weddings, through summer camps, just meeting in the normal course of life and getting to know people in a healthy, kosher environment, the way our parents and grandparents met. Almost all of them. It's very hard to find a shadchan today, unless they're very young, who themselves met their spouse by a shadchan on a blind date. It's very hard to find a rabbi who forbids people from meeting naturally, where either his father or his grandfather didn't meet naturally in some way. So there's no reason for this to be taken away from us, and it needs to be brought back.
Do you think there's any major difference between the cultures in let's say America, especially the New York area where we came from, and in Israel?
Yeah, I used to run a lot of events back in the States. That's when EndTheMadness was in its heyday. After I made Aliyah, it kind of petered out over there, and I tried getting started in Israel. I ran a few events, but it never really got off the ground. And it troubled me, because there's certainly a great need for it. There are many singles here and there who would really benefit from the events, but it never really got off the ground in Israel the way it did in the States. And I think there's a few reasons for that, although I can't be sure. One of them is I think that there are fewer singles here altogether. I mean, if back in the States, if even 1 or 2% of the singles would avail themselves of my programs, and I drew Jews from all segments of the Orthodox world, just people who are good, normal, from people who wanted to meet others in a natural way. I didn't stratify it based on, what yarmulke you wore or what label you gave on yourself. I tried to discourage people from thinking of themselves and others in those terms. But there are just so many more Jews, so many more people there in a small area, so many singles in a relatively small area, that it was easier to get more people to come to an event. Here you have Katamon, you have Baka, you have a few other pockets of singles around the country, but it's not nearly as large. It's more spread out. It's much more difficult. Second of all, it's a language barrier. I mean, I can only advertise really to the English speakers. I welcomed people from all backgrounds to come, but it's much harder to find other to reach other segments in Israel if you're not actually part of that society. It's harder. And also, I think the mindset here in terms of the singles world is much more closed. It's just they're very stuck in their ways of meeting people. They're stuck with the shadchan and the shidduch resume, or maybe the websites that they signed up for, and they're not willing to try something different. I don't understand why. I think in the States people are a little more open in a positive sense. I mean, we were talking earlier about being open in a wrongful sense, but here would be an example of where people should be more open-minded. There's nothing wrong in any way. It's perfectly good for people to meet naturally. And if what they're doing is not working well for them, and it's not pleasant, they don't feel good about themselves, it's not working, it's harmful to them. It takes all the fun out of dating. Dating should be fun and exciting. You're looking forward to meeting that special person, but dating turns into this horrible grind and a form of a suffering and a voda that I have to do this, but I don't really want. I have to go out on the date because I have to try, but I don't really want to go out on this date. When dating has that feeling and that attitude, then something's wrong and something needs to change. And if there's a possibility of meeting people naturally, you can just take a deep breath, relax, be natural, be normal, just meet friendly people and try to get to know them without all that pressure. Singles should be open to trying that. They really have nothing to lose from it and everything to gain.
You mentioned in yeshiva. I remember hearing from my friend who basically came like a Hasidic Rebbe. He would never stay in yeshiva for Shabbos at the meals. He would be in yeshiva often, but he'd make sure not to eat meals in yeshiva. And I asked him why, and he said he didn't want to get too comfortable in yeshiva. He said he wanted to have a certain discomfort, a certain push that you call these singles communities like their comfort zone. He said he didn't want his comfort zone as a single, so that he would have more of an impetus to get out there and just get himself a shidduch. He also, I realize now, because of his very unusual family history and also his unusual mindset, he was a mind and a viewpoint way different than most other guys in yeshiva, actually quite mature also, very mature for his age. He knew he needed to push himself to do this. And I think actually this is alluded to in the parasha. I'll say this a little bit of humor, but I know you could appreciate it. It says that, let's go back to that pasuk. It says, Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado, e'eselo ezer kenegdo. It's not good for man to be alone, so I'll make him a helpmate, be opposite him. Do you know what the next pasuk is? Most people give me a good answer. You know what it says next? You're smiling. Okay. So the typical answer people say is that God, it says, Wayapel Hashem Elokim Tardemal Ha'adam. He put him to sleep and then took out the rib. But that's not what it says. There's actually a digression. It says, God then created all the animals. Once again, this is a contradiction of sorts, because it said in the first chapter that the animals are first made and then God created man. But here it says, then God created all the animals and brought them to man, and he named all of them. He or as Chazal said, he understood them and gave them the proper Lashon HaKodesh description of each animal. And he saw that there was no Ezer Kenegdo.
Couldn't find what he was looking for. Right?
Yeah, and then, only then, was he put to sleep, anesthetized, for his invasive surgery, amputation and reconstructive surgery. I guess that's how you describe it in medical terms. And when Adam came to, there was a woman there. And I always told people that this is basically God's lesson. You have to first get out there and realize what you're looking for, what you're not supposed to find. You're not supposed to be comfortable in yeshiva with all your friends. You're not supposed to be in college in a frat house. Definitely not supposed to be with your family. That's the next pasuk says. A man should leave his mother and his father. You're not supposed to be comfortable with that. You're supposed to be looking around. And I said, so why this digression with the animals? Why does Adam Rishon have to realize that he's stuck in a world with dogs and cats and lions and gorillas? And
yes, because many singles have dogs and cats to keep them company in place of getting married.
No, but I'm also thinking wild animals, like man has nothing to do with bears and dolphins. So right. Why'd God create all those? And the answer I said is, I learned this in yeshiva, where I used to live just a little bit. I left my parents' house. I lived actually quite nearby, but I lived in a yeshiva apartment. And my roommates were I hope they're not watching this, but I was the neat one. I was the one who cooked and cleaned in the apartment. And these other guys just, if there wasn't a guy sent in by the yeshiva to clean up the place, every now and then it would be a pigsty. So basically the lesson here is that God had to show man that before he's ready to go into the shidduch world, he has to realize that he's living in a zoo. He's basically living his roommates he's living with a bunch of animals. And then when he wants to finally have another human being as a roommate, Now he's ready to get married. But if he's still in that mindset, like, yeah, frat house, a bunch of guys, just clear some space on the table so we could have the next meal and push away the garbage from the previous one, then he's not ready yet. And,
well, let me make a slightly different point. I actually thought that this is where you were going to go with this, and of course I agree with what you said, but I thought you were going to go in a slightly different direction with that. Many people, particularly I think young single women, you see them also like writing letters to the editor or writing articles in the Jewish media saying, "Oh, all my friends from high school are getting married. I'm one of the last ones left. I feel left out. I'm watching my friends get married." That is the worst possible reason that a person can have for wanting to get married, because your friends are getting married and you feel that you're left out, or they're sort of climbing the ladder in life and you're stuck on a lower level. That is the worst possible reason, or maybe not the worst possible, but it's a very bad reason to have for getting married. The reason why a person should want to get married is because you want to have a partner in life, that you feel that you're missing something, that your life cannot be complete as being single, and you want to have that partner in life. And you're looking for that, and you want to be a partner to somebody, and you want to have that partner in your life. That is the correct reason for getting married, as well as because that is the way all Jews should be. We understand that is the ideal way for Jews to live life as part of a marriage family unit. But it shouldn't, and that's why I think Hashem wanted Adam to realize that he was missing something. The animals in the world were not going to be partners for him. They were not going to help him get to the next level in life. And it wasn't just about being lonely, but it was about needing an actual partner that only Chava would be able to fill that role. I think that's really the primary lesson from that.
Yeah, I think so too. Usually the Torah lessons are a lot more serious and a lot less joking like I did it. We're running out of time now, so now it's time for you to plug your website and your books. Rabbi Weissman has a number of books out and also has a newer website, correct? ChananyaWeissman.com?
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
There you can see the mother lode of almost all the articles that I've written since the early 2000s. They're broken up into categories. The shidduch world. I've written a lot about Israel and have a whole section dedicated just to the last few months, what I call the redemption process. So I certainly encourage people to read all those articles free of charge, of course. I do have my books available as well. I have 7 books on a wide range of subjects. I have a collection of Divrei Torah on the Parshios called Keser Chananya. I have a collection of science fiction stories, which is still in print. My 2 most recent books are Go Up Like a Wall, which I give away. It is available on Amazon for worldwide customers for the minimum price that they allowed me to charge. I don't even make any royalties on it, just to make it easier for people to get it. People in Israel, I have copies that I give away. I can email a PDF to anybody who wants it. It is all about Navi and the eerie parallels between the early Bayesheni period and modern times, with a very strong emphasis on mass aliyah and building up Israel. I certainly welcome people to contact me or just go through the website, and they can read the entire sefer for free. If they want a hard copy, that is also available at no cost. And I've written 2 books about dating. One, EndTheMadness Guide to the Shidduch World, which is my magnum opus on the subject. It's broken up into 2 parts, the problem and the solution. The problem peels away all the different layers of the shidduch world, what's wrong with it in very detailed terms, how we got to reach this point, because it wasn't always this way, why certain changes were made to the shidduch world, how those changes have backfired and only made things worse, and after tearing it all down, then I build it back up the way it should be. And then I wrote another book more recently called How to Not Get Married, Break These Rules and You Have a Chance. That is not strictly about the shidduch world. It's open to really all people, even non-Jews. That also has 2 sections. The first one is giving advice to singles on how to basically stay single forever. And if they break these rules, and they have a chance to get married, because of course I can't guarantee that if anybody does any particular thing, it will still work. But this at least gives you a chance. If you follow all these rules, you're guaranteed to never get married. I think a lot of singles, they subtly, they think they want to get married, but they do subtle things to sabotage themselves from getting married. And then the second half of the book is advocating for singles and what they go through and how married people often try to help, but they only make things worse. So there's something in that book for everybody to hate, basically.
Good. Something to offend everybody. A good book leaves no one happy, or at least
exactly. And I also wrote a book about the gender roles as well, so people can show some love after reading all of my stuff for free, my videos. I also have a YouTube series called the Shidduch Chronicles about the Shidduch world, a lot of comedy films about that, some short films, and also a documentary called Single Jewish Male, which shows the male standpoint. We often hear about how there's so many great women out there, and where are all the guys who are all losers, and that's very damaging and harmful as well. So I interviewed 4 men who spoke about their experiences as single men, and I think that sheds a lot of light on issues that are really not often touched. There's a lot of really good stuff on my website. Almost all of it is free, And if you want to show that you like me, you can actually buy something too. But that's not the intention. I'm not doing this to make money.
Okay, good. So I'm going to have to check out a lot of that now also. I think I've been reading your columns in the Jewish press since at least 20 years ago. I think about 20 years ago or so, back in New York.
It's close to 20 years.
So I've read them, and I was familiar with EndTheMadness back then also. I haven't read the books. I did see one. I remember picking up, I think it was called Rabbi Chananya or all that. It was your novelle on Torah and all that. Where you pointed out at the beginning, if you're looking for haskamas, I'm not going to put them in here. I have haskamas, but I don't need you. If you're only going to read this book because of the haskamas, then I'm going to leave them out because we want people to evaluate these ideas and not who endorsed them.
So yes. I do have a haskama on that sefer from Rabbi Tendler, Rabbi Moshe Tendler from YU, and the haskama for those who want to see is on the website as well. If they really want to see the haskama, it's there. But I didn't print it with the book. I published that. I think I was 22 or 23 when I published it. The reason why I didn't have the haskama was because nowadays are like layers of armor. You know, you open up a sefer, the first like 40 pages are all haskamas. It's like, if the first rabbi's haskama is good, why do you need rabbi number 2? And if it's not good, why do you need a haskama like a hechsher? Either the food's kosher or it's not kosher. Why do you need 50 different rabbis to certify that the food is kosher? It's become more of a gimmick than actually, protecting us from kfira. And I wanted to sort of make a statement about that to a certain extent we have to think for ourselves as well. Not that we don't need rabbis to guide us. Of course we do. But we need to swing things back more to a proper balance rather than going from one extreme to the other extreme.
I understand that. So don't forget, everybody, check out Rabbi Weissman's media. You can find it there. I think we'll post it when we repost this video. We'll include that in the comments. It's ChananyaWeissman.com, and you can find all his material over there. And now it's my time once again. Don't forget Haggadah Pesach. It's not Passover time, but that book is out there, and it's selling right now. And it happens to have haskamas, not Rabbi Tendler's haskama, although he has his own copy and he's very happy about it. I myself have a different view of these things. I did it because I know that some people in some communities, they're just not even going to look at it if it doesn't have the haskama of whoever it is they hold by. That's a Yiddish term. So I did it for them. But it's sufficient that for me, that the local Rav has looked it over and is happy with it. And like you said, if you're looking for a hechsher, it has a hechsher. That should be good enough. So I have to address one comment we got. I didn't see any questions in the comments. Rabbi Weissman, do you see the comments on this video?
I do not.
Okay, so I see one. Someone mentioned that it seems that there was another woman made because Hashem's made man and woman, implying that there was another woman. I don't know about that. I think there might be some midrash about that. Also, he wants a PDF. I'm not sure what PDF of what. So after this, we'll send him whatever.
I assume he needs a PDF of my sefer that I mentioned go up like a wall. If people want to contact me directly, my email address is endthemadness@gmail.com. They can contact me about anything, and I'd be happy to send them a copy of the sefer. And if they're in Israel, I'd be happy to give them a hard copy.
Okay, good. So don't forget to everybody like, share, and subscribe. Send in your questions, your comments. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. We would like to thank Rabbi Weissman again for joining us today. And God willing, next week, I can't unveil it just yet, but we have another special guest next week, Parashat Noach. And I'd like to wish everybody out there have a good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, and a good night. Be well.